What's up everybody? Hope everyone's having a good day. Today I'm going to be talking about Witcher 4. This is not going to be a trailer reaction, but we are going to be talking about several things in the trailer and surrounding the game. I watched the trailer and the extended interview from IGN, and in this video I will be telling you guys what I think of what I saw, as well as talk about some of the things that have to be brought up. Here's a little list of bullet points that I'll be going over. First, we're going to be doing a short overview of the trailer and a little aside for a dumb take that I saw online. We'll be talking about the decision of making her the protagonist of the sequel. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room as well, which pertains to CD Projekt Red's decisions of late as a growing company and how they may have impacted this game. We're also going to talk about the situation of her being made into an actual Witcher, despite the obvious implications that involves. And lastly, we're going to talk about her appearance, since it's all over social media right now with claims that they are uglifying her and etc. Timestamps for each of these topics will be in the description and on the top comment, unless I forget to make the top comment, in which case you should call me out.
I shouldn't have said that. I should not have said that. I shouldn't have said that.
So yeah, there's going to be some bad, there's going to be some good, there's going to be some discussion, there's going to be some things to call out, and there's going to be some things to be looking forward to. Without further ado, let's get in there. As an overview, the trailer was fine. It was reminiscent of a side quest that we can get in Witcher 3 if we go and check out a monster contract in Skellige. There's a similar situation pertaining to a monster in the woods being worshipped by a village and requiring sacrifices to be appeased. Until the sacrifice happens, it just continues to brutally kill more and more hunters from the village. I'm mentioning this because it's going to be important context in a little bit. As Geralt, you have a choice in what to do in the quest. Either help the village elders complete the sacrifice or hunt the monster, which is what the younger hunters want you to do. Worth noting though that the sacrifice is not human, it's of 5 wolves. Obviously, if it was supposed to be a person, Geralt would have a stronger reaction and not go with it at all. At most, maybe we'd have the option to just leave and not make it our business, but we would not be able to actually do it. This is one of the cool things about Geralt. You can consider him a good man with a heart, unlike what most of the world makes of him as a mutant. You can even at times refuse to take money for a contract whenever there are sick children involved or other similar matters. I know of 2 specific times, once in White Orchard where a little girl is sick with a fever and needs water from a haunted well. The father pays for you to clear the haunting, but you can refuse that payment for him to take care of the child. And in Crow's Perch you can refuse payment from the Shrieker contract. The man who posted the contract has taken in an orphan child whose father was killed by the Shrieker. He insists on paying, but you can refuse it and tell the man to put it towards taking care of the child. There's even a little optional thing that you can do. You can go behind the house after you completed the contract, it's unmarked, and you can find the little boy and you can tell him that you avenged his father's death, and he walks away with a smile. I say these things because it's important to remember that Geralt is not an uncaring person, nor is he a person without morals. He is often painted as a protector of the innocent in our stories, at least in the games, as we can see for example again in White Orchard, when he and Vesemir fail to stay out of a conflict and end up wiping out an entire inn after a fight breaks out, because the barmaid took down a shield with a Temerian insignia out of fear that the Nilfgaardians would see it and deem her a traitor. The fight starts because she's attacked, and in the end of it, Geralt even tries to check on her, but all she sees is a mutant who just butchered a bunch of people in her own bar. A monster. So it doesn't bother me that Ciri would see a little girl being taken as a sacrifice for a monster that she knows is not a god and try to save her. In fact, I like this. This is a good quality. However, the tone of the scene matters, as does the ending of the trailer, where it's implied that she's about to butcher an entire village of scared idiots who are even seen taking steps back away from Ciri. An important thing to remember about Geralt in these moments is that in these instances, Geralt would never be the instigator unless there was an active threat. In that moment there, upon arriving at the village and seeing that the girl is already dead, Geralt would absolutely have disdain for the villagers for what they did. However, he would not attack them. He would shake his head, chalk that up as yet another horrible fucking day in his job, with humanity once again displaying their worst qualities, and then he would get up on his horse and he would leave and never look back. He wouldn't assault the entire village unless his life or the life of the girl was threatened. He was always very pragmatic in these kinds of situations because there's no honor and no gain in butchering a bunch of people who have their weapons down. He would be likely to defend the girl's life if given that opportunity, and to do it with violence if all attempts to calm down the villagers failed. I could see this, but he would not be the one to be the judge, jury, and executioner to a bunch of dumb, scared villagers who worship monsters in the woods because they don't know better. Now, some people may listen to this and think, well, what about justice? There's no justice being served if you walk away in a moment like that. Well, I would say that that's part of the tragic beauty of the world of The Witcher. You don't always get a happy ending. If you go back to Witcher 3 and think of some of the quests that we had to do, we often had quests where there was no right decision to do and there was no good ending to get. People often get too obsessed with the idea of stories having to have good endings and positive messages and ignore the massive potential in stories that give us a brutal dose of reality and introspection. You can't make a dark fantasy RPG if you are always there to save the day, and you can't make compelling and complex stories with moral conundrums if you always have a definitive black and white ending to those contained stories, such as butchering an entire village out of petty revenge under the guise of having done something good when in reality we would have just been adding to the death counter. Anyway, no matter what you decide to do, as Geralt in that similar contract in The Witcher 3, the people in the village turn to violence amidst themselves all the same, just another instance of people's heartlessness and monstrosity. If you kill the monster, when you return, you find corpses of the elders littering the streets as the hunters rounded them up and killed them. You can walk away or you can pick a fight with them by pissing them off. This I could see, but in this trailer what we see is Ciri being the monster, turning and walking towards those villagers as they retreat, and this admittedly is something I didn't like, and that I can only justify for now as it basically being a flashy CGI trailer with very little substance that should not be taken too seriously. But yeah, suffice to say that as a first impression it showed me a detachment from Ciri as a character because I believe she would know better by having had Vesemir and Geralt as her mentors. However, I fully accept the notion that I may be overanalyzing here and that maybe the trailer is not meant to be that deep. But I would also say that that's not a good thing either. I would like something with more substance for a Witcher 4 trailer. Announcing a new IP with a vague, flashy trailer like they did for Cyberpunk all the way back then is one thing, but bringing back a huge franchise with a prominent character should require something more engaging in my opinion. One last thing I would like to mention before we jump into the next topic is this tweet here that's been making the rounds as well. Vibe shifted from moral grayness to nuanceless Reddit atheism. The medieval peasants are the real monsters for being religious. Here we fucking go again. Throughout several parts of this video, you will see me call out issues within CD Projekt Red because there are absolutely concerning things within the studio that we must discuss. And it wouldn't even be the first time. I've done this on this channel before. But crap like this is just fucking stupid. It's just dishonest nitpickery and it's not really going to get anyone anywhere. It's just going to make people not take us seriously. The narrative in the story in this trailer, and of course also in that story from The Witcher 3 with the Leshen and, the one that we just discussed, is that there is no god in the woods. It's a monster. The villagers don't know any better and they are worshipping a literal monster, and in the case of the trailer, they are even sacrificing innocent children for that monster. This is not anti-religious messaging. If you look at this story and you see anti-religious messaging, you need to look inward, my brother, because you are not thinking straight. You're thinking gay, which is a sin. But seriously now, and jokes aside, I would not want my religion to be represented like this. This is a thing that I'm not understanding, is that people are seeing this scene where a false god is living in the woods and is actually a monster and is demanding sacrifice, children sacrifice, to be brought to them in order to maintain the peace. And they're finding it offensive. They're finding it anti-religious rhetoric or something because of what Ciri says at the end of the trailer. There are no gods here, only monsters, which exactly pertains to that, to the monster living in the woods. There is no god there, only monsters. Just like in the village, there are no gods there, only monsters who just killed a little girl. This does not represent Christianity, yet Christian people are getting offended at it. I don't know about you guys, but I would not want my religion to be represented by a bunch of crazy ass fucking old people in a village who worship monsters in the woods. If anything, if this was to be related to Christianity, then that monster in the woods would be some sort of machination of the devil. A monster monster designed to draw little children to come to him so that he can slaughter, and those villagers would be accomplices of a great sin, more than one even, murder and dealing with the devil. So yeah, I really don't understand this narrative, and I'm just going to move on to the next point of the video and leave this here. Ciri as a protagonist. So there's a lot of buzz online in regards to Ciri being the protagonist of the new game, and I personally don't see an issue here at all, at least not as far as what people are saying. Unlike the situation with Ghost of Yotai, where we had been teased a new step in a new and difficult journey as Jin Sakai and Yuna, the same cannot be said for Geralt. We've finished the trilogy with a beautiful send-off, especially if we leave Blood and Wine expansion for the end of the game, and I honestly would not want to see Geralt returning. When it comes to sequels, I'm someone who prefers a character and even a whole series, if need be, to be left alone once their story is told. For example, I think The Last of Us Part 2 was totally unnecessary. I liked the world of The Last of Us enough to want another game set in it, but my hopes were that we'd get a completely new cast with an original story in a completely different place, rather than picking Joel and Ellie back up. I liked the way the story had ended. It did not feel like we needed a sequel. Same with Life is Strange as another example. We didn't need a prequel that completely fucked up the world building, and we also didn't need the most recent sequel that did the same, and the characters as well. Another reason for this is that once you tell a respectable story with a respectable journey, the way that you keep both of these things respectable is to let them go. The more you pick those characters back up, the more you cartoonify them, the more you basically turn them into comic book characters that are always getting into more trouble or whatever. There's never any definitive closure to be given to them, and there's less and less integrity. For lack of a better word, it's like, I don't know, a beautiful collectible football used in the finals of a massively important World Cup or something. But instead of keeping it pristine in your collection, you just keep picking it up and playing with it, wearing it down physically and symbolically, because it's no longer just the ball from the super important World Cup. Now it's just a worn out ball that you just use. So yeah, I didn't want to see Geralt coming back because I want that trilogy to be as untainted as possible, and I want Geralt to remain this iconic character, symbolic of that one fantastic trilogy, rather than just another mascot that just keeps returning because oh no, a new threat, and oh no, another new threat. So sorry for that tangent. Let's get back to Ciri as a protagonist herself. I don't know a lot about Witcher lore. I didn't read the books yet, and so I don't know exactly what could have been a better idea for a playable character in terms of what exciting existing characters we have in the world of The Witcher. What I do know is that handing it to Ciri was expected. It was already talked about back in 2015, especially after giving us control over her in some parts of the game. Geralt's story being over and the concept of Ciri taking over as a protagonist in her own adventure was not a new thing. Some people even expressed interest in the story being a prequel, showing where Ciri went on all of those wild adventures of hers, especially because Cyberpunk's world was teased in one of her comments about the places that she's been and the things that she has seen, and I would have been totally down for that. I know that it totally goes against my comment about cartoonifying your characters, because this would be absolutely crazy, but at the same time, if the Elder Blood is that insane of a thing, if the concept of multidimensional travel is actually something that she could do, then why not explore it, instead of just turning her into a Witcher? What, is it because of the name of the game? You don't play as a fucking train in the Metro series? Anyway, in a world where CD Projekt Red as a studio is not mired in controversy, this could actually be a great decision, because there's a great incentive to handing down the mantle to a beloved character to carry on that legacy, especially a character that we saw and rooted for in a previous game, one that we know meant a lot to Geralt and also trained with him and the other Witchers. I want to be positive about this. I think you guys can tell that. I'm not just trying to fucking rage bait here, but I also cannot hide how concerned I am about some things that we'll be covering in the next topic. I personally have zero issues with female protagonists. I know some people have difficulty relating to them and immersing themselves in a game, especially in RPGs, as it takes them out of the experience. I can't relate to that, but I do understand it, and I think it's a perfectly valid complaint. I understand that there is obviously a growing concern for bad female protagonists being put into games for the sake of diversity and inclusion, and a false mission to appeal to a new audience rather than doing their job and appealing to their already established audiences. It's kinda like Star Wars. It used to be a thing for everyone by just being loyal to itself. Now, while trying to desperately appeal to a minority, it has ended up pushing away everyone, including the minority that it's trying to appeal to, because they're not interested in this garbage. But in direct response to some of the comments that I see online saying that this is a replacement and a bait and switch type of situation, I just don't see it. I think that this is an expected move that we already saw coming a long time ago, and a move that could totally work if the character is well written, well designed, and the story is engaging. This is what matters the most for me, and it's what makes a protagonist work or not. Which brings us to the next topic, which is the huge elephant in the room. I made a video on CD Projekt Red's trajectory and how it spells trouble for their future projects. You guys can check it out right here if you're interested in the full scoop, but as an abridged version, they have fully given themselves to DEI practices and ideologies, the same kinds of ideologies that are antithetical to the creation of video games. Their sole existence is to politicize rather than entertain, and the same kind of practices that kill the talent and morale within the studio. We've seen it in action over the past couple of years, leading to a decline in the quality of our games, culminating in some of the worst garbage that we have ever seen. You can see their messaging all over their website. They've even got a program that is exclusionary of men, only recruiting women for getting a free ride through game development school, which is something I've only seen Ubisoft doing. If there's something that you definitely should not do, it's something that Ubisoft is fucking doing. They've also made a mission statement video for ESG where they corrupted their past games and the intentions and talent behind their development by retroactively applying DEI to them. It's a total bullshit sandwich that I break down in my own video. Please check it out if you are interested, because I am not going to go into detail on this one in order to save time. Last but not least, the hiring of an ex-Sweet Baby Inc. writer who not only worked for them but also actively defends them no matter how low their public image sinks. On her own, she even proudly admits to wanting to pull every lever on LGBTQ representation in games. In other words, they hired an activist and placed her as a senior writer in their future projects. These are all concerning things that keep me from being able to simply watch a trailer about The Witcher 4 and get blissfully excited. I wish that I could join everyone else in these comment sections. I wish that I could be shouting in excitement from the top of my lungs, but I just can't, because I see where this industry is going. I see what these ideologies produce, and I am concerned that it has affected CD Projekt Red as well. It's like Dragon Age. I wanted to be excited for it. I wanted to be one of those dumbasses on their Facebook pages and subreddits where haha reacts and criticisms are banned from. But I couldn't be because of what we were seeing coming out as news, and even on the very trailers themselves, and the developer interviews, and the dev diary on BioWare's websites, etc. In the end, Veilguard turned out to be even worse than I feared. I can't say that I am as afraid of Witcher 4 as I was of Veilguard, of course. I mean, BioWare was already a house on fire before that, and the look of the trailer was just terrible. But I am still just concerned nonetheless because of all of these elements. I think Mary Kenny might only be involved with the upcoming Cyberpunk game and not specifically Witcher 4, but the thing is that if you are so ideologically driven that you're going to hire an obvious activist into your studio, then I'm going to question every other decision that you make. So naturally, even though the choice of Ciri as a protagonist does not feel like a strictly ideological thing, since there are many aspects that point to this being the natural next step in the story, the fact is that a female protagonist would be the perfect place for the activism breathing indie studios to be concentrated in. Much like Tash was the perfect character for identity politics obsessed morons to concentrate all of their self-insert cringe into.
Here's the ginger.
Thank you.
So, I'm non-binary.
Holy Jesus.
I'm not saying that this is a guarantee, I'm just calling it like I see it. There absolutely are reasons for people to be concerned for this game, and I don't like seeing this dismissal of valid concerns like we saw, for example, with the top surgery scars in the character creator of Veilguard. What people don't understand, or that they do understand but they purposefully misinterpret in order to pass along a wrong image of our concerns, is that it wasn't the top surgery scars that were a problem, it was the ideology behind the decision of placing them there in the first place. It is a move that demonstrates that the video game is compromised. It is no longer something for escapism, it is something for pushing a certain message. And the thing is that we were fucking right, because that game was overflowing with that crap to the point where we couldn't even have logical and lore-accurate world building. We couldn't even have basic fantasy archetypes like thief or assassin or necromancer or darkness or brute warriors. Everything was parsed through an ideological filter, constantly questioning whether or not there was a wrong moral, political, or societal message or image that could be interpreted by the players, resulting in the blandest fucking game that I've ever played. What I want the most for this game is to be perfect. I want all my worries to be washed away. I want to be wrong. I want CD Projekt Red to carry on being able to deliver quality RPGs, so that I can take it as an example and be like, hey guys, look, maybe there is still hope for some of these big Western studios despite some of their suspicious decisions. And no, before you bring up Baldur's Gate 3, that does not count. The company wasn't caked with activists, it was caked with passionate developers trying to make the best game that they could, and then adding some diversity to it in the end. There's a massive difference between an intent to make a game great and then adding whatever diversity they can fit into it for whatever reasons, and an intent to make a game a beacon of diversity. One will not sacrifice its own integrity in order to be more inclusive, and the other will place inclusivity at the forefront of its thoughts and sacrifice other game qualities in its place. And a lot of this can be detected via the language that they use, which is why I despise that ESG video that they made, talking about how DEI was this important element that shaped the success of their previous games, visible in certain storylines such as the Bloody Baron's questline, exploring domestic violence and alcohol abuse. But it's all nonsense. All that was good writing and a mission to give players some of the best directed quests in the medium, with a focus on letting the players be the ones to think about the themes for themselves, rather than being hand-fed a narrative or a message that is ideologically correct. And that's why the Bloody Baron's questline has a compelling development arc that allows for his redemption to be a thing, instead of just being 3 hours of chastising the big, bad, fat, drunk old man for the sake of not running the risk of glorifying alcohol abuse and domestic violence. And now, some of the language in that IGN extended interview was somewhat concerning as well. Part of it mentioning how Ciri has always been more important to the plot than Geralt, which is just weird, unnecessary, red flaggy language. On one hand, they're not wrong in the sense of the overarching story. As a carrier of the Elder Blood, she was the only one who could stop the White Frost, but this completely invalidates Geralt and everything that he did throughout his own story, which reaches back before Ciri was even born. And it also invalidates Geralt's important role in supporting Ciri and in shaping her to become the person that she is, and also even training her to be able to do what she needed to do. And in the game context, it invalidates every choice and every action that we were a part of throughout this trilogy. I could be wrong and looking too far into it, maybe it's just a dumb little line referring to the Elder Blood, but I don't like it. It is reminiscent of Insomniac saying that in Spider-Man 3 we will be playing as Miles Morales because he was always meant to be the protagonist, and Peter Parker in the first game was merely meant to be passing on the torch. Stop promoting your new games with your new side characters by demeaning and devaluing your previous games, and most of all, our favorite main characters. It's a stupid ass move, it doesn't fucking work, and it only serves to make people immediately have a problem with your new character, because suddenly that thing that I mentioned before about making Ciri the protagonist being a continuance and a way to pass the mantle, that whole thing gets completely flushed down the toilet, and instead it becomes about replacement. It doesn't matter how important Ciri has always been to the story, we already know that. You won't be able to convince people that she's always been as important in the games that we've played when she wasn't even even present for 2 of them, or even in the books for that matter, which prominently still feature Geralt. Just write your fucking character, make her good, and we will be the judges of that, by going on interviews like this and trying to force this narrative that Ciri is as important as Geralt, just to retroactively make your new character as weighty as a beloved fan favorite character that we spent an entire trilogy with. All you'll be achieving is the exact opposite because you haven't simply earned that accolade yet. And the manipulation tactics that you're doing, trying to make us hold this new protagonist of yours in a higher regard than your previous one, is just tacky. It's nasty, it's ugly, it's unbecoming of you as a studio. You've written incredible characters in The Witcher and in Cyberpunk, and you never had to resort to any of this bullshit. Doing this now makes me concerned that you're creating shitty, vapid, self-insert characters that you're not confident in, and that you're already running a fucking PR narrative to influence people into transferring all of their love and respect for Geralt and the trilogy into this new potential trilogy with this new Ciri that simply has not earned her place yet, especially considering the fact that you're no longer even following the books. So to use the books as well as this booster of like, hey guys, remember Ciri, she is the most important one, it's just disgusting and it's obvious. I can see right through it, and again, it's unbecoming of you, it's inelegant, and the only thing it manages to validate is my concerns for the direction that your studio has been going in for the past 2 years. And now it's time to talk about Ciri being a Witcher. So in the trailer we can see that Ciri's eyes have this same viper or cat eye look that Geralt also had, and that's the point she also seems to cast a Witcher sign and drink a potion, which are all things that she could never do unless she was a Witcher. So it seems that Ciri has been officially made a Witcher, which brings with it a bunch of problems that we need to discuss. According to the lore, there are no female Witchers, and this is because every time that the trial of the grasses was tried on them, they died. Some morons like to call this misogynistic because, well, they're fucking stupid. They're those types of people who think that acknowledging biological differences between men and women is an inherently evil sexist thing to do, except of course when they do it to criticize and generalize men, of course. In my opinion, the actual concept of stopping to try and apply the trial of the grasses on women is the opposite of misogynistic. It's a loving and caring act for the protection of women. The problem is that nowadays, for some morons, the idea of protecting women and children is some weird patriarchal thing. Women are supposedly not meant to be protected because the very notion that they would need protection means that they are weaker. This is so delusionally out of touch with the basic concepts of humanity and kindness that I can't even say anything else. From my vague understanding of the lore, only 3 in every 10 boys would survive the ordeal, whereas for girls, it was 0. Why then would the Witchers continue to take little girls and killing them through the trials once seen that they had an abysmally low success rate? Being a Witcher is not a glorious thing either. These were boys that were taken from their families. Their childhood was robbed from them. They were taken to these castles or keeps or whatever, where their only living companions were Witchers, who were regarded as mutated monsters. And then, ultimately, in the end, these boys were made to go through the trial of the grasses, which most did not survive. And then the ones that did survive had to go arduous training regiments for years until they would be ready to set out and dedicate their lives to fighting incredibly dangerous monsters for money, doomed to forever roam the world, shunned and separated from society. So this idea that Witchers only being men is misogynistic is fucking retarded, as it places being a Witcher as being some sort of amazing privilege. This is like getting angry and calling it misogynistic that only the men were drafted to the world wars. Whenever the topic of female Witchers is brought up to discussion, this is always what it revolves around, about it being misogynistic. In order to believe this, you have to be one of 2 things: an activist who has never even touched the games and has absolutely no idea what a Witcher is, or a fucking retard. This is what intersectional feminism does to people. It turns them into fucking idiots, and then I am the asshole for calling it out. In the game, there is a visible pain in all of the Witchers whenever they bring up the trial to be used on Uma. They don't want to do this. They don't have good memories of this. This is not something that they take pride and joy in. These people are so politically brained, it's insane. But anyway, back to the female Witcher matter. I don't know what story twist CD Projekt is going to do here. What I do know from the reaction of the villagers when Ciri's hood comes down and it is revealed that she's a woman is that female Witchers are not not a common sight. At least that's what I take from that scene where they get all very surprised when her hood comes down. So I am assuming that CD Projekt Red are not retconning this bit of lore, and I am assuming instead that they are going to do some sort of thing where either the trial of the grasses is specifically researched to have higher success rate on women because of their biological differences, or that perhaps it was her elder blood that allowed her to survive it. We'll see when they reveal more about the game, I guess. I do wish that this had not been done though. It's not an addition I am particularly fond of. In fact, it's just highly unnecessary and very problematic. When you put together how unnecessary it is and the lore complications that it brings to the table, it's just not worth it, and comes across as an ideological decision to just show that, hey look, witchers are no longer just men, now females can also survive the trial of the grasses. As if there was ever a fucking point of pride for men to have in the first place. Hey, did you know that in The Witcher 3? Yeah, I'm talking to you, by the way. Yeah, you, there, the cutie in the back. Did you know that in the Witcher series, only the men can go through the trial of the grasses and survive because of how tough we are? Yeah, it's true. Only 3 in 10 survive, but you know how many women survive? 0. This is because, of course, as men, we're just better. We are incredible. It's the truth.
It's the goddamn truth, Vera.
So, given that I have given you this bit of information, I was wondering if perhaps you would like to come with me to my hotel room where we could engage in coitus. Like, is this what people think that men are thinking about when this whole discourse comes up about female witchers and shit? Identity politics are fucking stupid and boring. This was just a bit of lore that fleshed out the universe and the world building a little bit more, just like how the prominent sorceresses are women. But anyway, back to Ciri. The thing that makes it so unnecessary is that she had a thing already. Her elder blood was already a very special characteristic that allowed her to stand up to monsters the way that a witcher could. She didn't need to be turned into one of them in order to fight as one of them, and she had her own array of special abilities to use. It was unique about her, and I think adding being an actual witcher is only going to be another element to muddle her as a character, as well as her presence in the world. I also like this concept of a non-witcher being taught the same way that witchers were, and it actually working, again because of her special characteristics. Now she's just going to be another witcher, for people to be like, oh, a lady witcher, it's impossible, and then she just goes, no it's not, I'm here bitch, or some stupid nonsense like that, which is definitely 100% something that Mary Kenny would write, alongside with like something along the lines of like, I'm homeless, I am gay, I have AIDS, I'm new in town. Another thing that does not fit is the fact that both Geralt and Yennefer would never want Ciri to go through that trial. They already didn't want to do it on Uma, and that was someone that they didn't even know. Ciri being a beloved daughter figure to Geralt makes me doubt that he would ever want to put her through the trial. Then again, he also didn't want her to face the White Frost either, but still didn't stop her from doing it anyway. Though, to be fair, that was an emergency that only she could stop as a porter of the Elder Blood, whereas becoming a Witcher feels like much more of an unnecessary optional thing, given her training and inherent powers from the Elder Blood. It is my hope that Ciri remains the character that she was and doesn't have any nonsense applied to her because of those ideological patterns that we just talked about. In the trailer we see her go off, and the way that she does is not entirely unlike her. Much like Geralt, she has a sense of morality and she would not want to see someone get sacrificed into some monster in the woods. But unlike Geralt, she is much more explosive with her emotions, whereas Geralt was more in control of his. This allowed for Geralt to be more malleable as a character in order for us players to make different moral choices. There are many situations where Geralt can walk away from a fucked up situation rather than do anything, or escalate a situation and do something. These characteristics also prevented him from acting out in cringy ways. It's actually amazing the amount of content that these games have, and not once can I think back to him acting like a moron. Although again, I do have to be fair and remember that this is a trailer that could have been played up for dramatics. In the interview with IGN, the developers spoke of wanting to keep player choice and agency as a big part of their game, but at the same time they also spoke of how Ciri is her own person and she often acts with her heart rather than with her head, something along those lines.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
The best case scenario is that we have something akin to our experience as Geralt, a character who was his own person, who had lines that he did not cross, but who also was not obsessively made into a politically correct hero by the developers. Truly a perfect fit into the dark fantasy setting. Worst case scenario is that she's turned into some sort of stereotypical girl boss. The reason why girl bosses are annoying and brought up in these discussions is usually mistaken for, again, sexism and misogyny. But the truth is that the qualities given to girl bosses are not inherently feminine. It all really comes down to bad writing, especially in the sense of taking away character development because of an urge to present the character as flawless, because of that classic intersectional feminism nonsense that I just mentioned a little bit ago, in regards to, for example, the concept of a man protecting a woman being sexist because women apparently don't need protection. Similarly, giving a female character flaws to overcome through character development is an intersectional nightmare. This would be bad in a male character too, of course, but it's just much more common in female characters right now. It's very fashionable. If you want some examples, get a subscription to Disney Plus and speedrun their entire MCU Phase 4 plus their Star Wars shows. Once again, I remain cautiously optimistic. I just want to enjoy a good fucking game, you know? I hate being negative in these videos, but I also gotta be real and lay out these uncertain things because we are going through an uncertain time in the industry, and while I don't want people to get rage baited into hating everything, including some of the things that don't even make sense, I also don't want people to lower their guards, waste their money, and get disappointed when this comes out. Initially I was going to end the video here, but then I saw a bunch of discourse online about Ciri's appearance, so now we have to talk about that too. I don't see an issue here yet, and I'll be waiting for the game footage. Back in the cinematic trailers for Witcher 3, Geralt also looked very different from what we got rendered in-game at launch. Yennefer was the same case. I think people just need to relax a little. What we saw in the trailer was very akin to what I remember Ciri as in Witcher 3, just older and a bit different, but her outfit and the way that she carried herself was still accurate, and throughout the entire trailer she just has this awfully angry expression on her face because of what is going on. She's seeing a young girl be taken as a sacrifice. She's fighting some weird fucking, I don't even know what that was. A Kikimor maybe? Uncle Vesemir would be very disappointed in me right now.
Men, a witcher's life is not all cards and liquor. It is toil. It is labor. No gurgling babes to wean for us. Nay, not for us.
Anyway, she then returns to see the worst of humanity showing itself once more, a staple of the dark fantasy world of The Witcher. The little girl she wanted to save, dying in the arms of her father, betrayed by her own neighbors. She's pissed off and it shows, and I'm personally going to wait until we see more of her face with other expressions, and especially seeing her in game. People don't tend to look their best when they're frowning or livid with anger. I urge people to chill out on this for now. We obviously don't have that weird ass trend of DEI chin or fucking purple hair or the man jaw or any of this crap that is a staple in many other video games, and even the little girl from the village did not look affected by this stuff either. So I just urge everyone to chill out a little bit for now. Don't give in to this uglification thing. I've talked about this matter in my videos before. I stand against this concept completely, but I just don't see it here, and I think it's dangerous to become so consumed by these matters that you start seeing things and jumping on things that are just not correct. It makes us look fucking unhinged. There's plenty of times to bring it up legitimately, like hell, you guys could even bring that up for the new Naughty Dog game, for example. I already looked up the name 3 times today and forgot it, so I'm not going to do it again. Something about intergalactic spaceman, some bullshit like that. Anyway, in this game we absolutely have an obvious butch lesbian design that goes another step further and actually shaves her head completely. In this case, you can definitely make a case for a studio clearly trying to get away from making their female character look feminine. Hell, it's even made worse by recent events, like that whole 4B feminist movement that's been encouraging women to shave their heads as a way to fight against Trump voters or whatever. It's obvious that this is not what Naughty Dog directly intended to reference. I bet this character design was decided way before that, but the core concept of erasing the qualities that make them women and therefore aesthetically pleasing to men is the same in both cases, and it starts getting really tiring, especially by coming from The Last of Us 2, which featured Abby, who looks like she's about to stone cold stun you out of the ring, and Lev, who looks like this character here actually. In fact, if you put her in a post-apocalyptic setting, I would have said that this is a direct sequel or something. But I'll get to this trailer on its own video sooner or later. I mean, if you just listen to the fucking actress talking about non-binary people and trans ideology, you will see precisely why this character looks the way that it does. But anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an example to put side by side. If you look at them, or if you look at that picture of all the DI chin ladies of the recent years, I think you can see an obvious difference. To try and equate Ciri to these examples right now and using bad frames while ignoring the good ones in very little footage, calling her uglified into looking like a man based on how little we've seen from this trailer, it's just unnecessary to me. I know that CD Projekt Red is not beyond doing some sneaky shit like that, just like so many other Western studios right now going down the DEI rabbit hole, but I think that we're not at that point yet with this particular case, and it makes us look bad if we're immediately jumping on that shit. I'd rather express my concerns through the things that CD Projekt Red has all over their website and their decisions to retroactively apply DEI ideology to Witcher 3's successes, as well as the hiring of an activist to the rank of senior writer, and on the more tangible things in that trailer itself. But anyway, that's just me. One way or another, I'll be keeping a close eye on this one and on the studio going forward to bring you guys any notable updates, including the situation with her face if it comes down to it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, consider giving me a like as it greatly helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new and want more of this in the future. With that said, thank you very much for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next video.